Signore e signori, buonasera. Welcome, benvenuti to Casa Italiana zerilli-marimò at New York University. My name is Stefano Albertini. I'm the director. It's a great honor and privilege to welcome tonight back to the Casa Vanessa Roghi, that is bringing to us this documentary that she made on Elsa Morante. The reason why we are doing this documentary on Elsa Morante, that was just broadcasted in Italy a few months ago, right? 1 year ago. And we had the translation. The Casa produced the subtitles for all of you to enjoy. And the occasion, let's see, came to us from the fact that a new translation of Menzogna e Sortilegio, now I don't remember the title in English, Lies and Sorcery, has been published. The translator is Jenny McPhee, and we are going to present the translation of Menzogna e Sortilegio, and you'll receive the invitation. It's going to be in the coming weeks. But we thought that it was great to have a chance of presenting Elsa Morante as a writer in all her complexity. And when I saw the documentary of Vanessa in Italy, I decided that we had to bring this specific documentary. Vanessa Roghi is an historian. She's also an author that writes about contemporary politics and society. Her research interest in the last few years concentrated on the history of school in Italy, history of education. So she wrote about Don Milani and Lettera a una professoressa that she's going to talk about here tomorrow evening again. She wrote about Mario Lodi, a teacher that revolutionized the way in which elementary school works or should work in Italy. And Gianni Rodari, the great poet, educator, not as well known here as he should be, but that's the sort of interest. But at the same time, she also wrote and published on many other different topics. And she also has this other life that is documentarist, where all these other things come together. Vanessa, I want to introduce you, and then we'll see you at the end for the Q&A. But please come and welcome Vanessa Roghi.
Thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored and happy to be here with you tonight. And I'm happy that we are looking this documentary together. It's really important because Elsa Morante is really an important writer, and there are no documentaries on her. So even if mine is not the best, it's the only one. So have a good vision.
No competition. We'll see you at the end for the Q&A. Please stay. Thank you. Enjoy. And to me, this is also a way to recognize what we said, the greatest female writer, definitely, of the 20th, maybe writers without female or male, right? And you know that has always been under, somehow, the shadow of her husband, Alberto Moravia. It's a very ingombrante, the figure of Alberto Moravia. I don't have particular sympathy towards him, so I'm naturally inclined to root for Elsa Morante and they're destined, like in bookstore when you go, they're alphabetical order, always together. And normally there are the books of Moravia that cover the ones by Morante that are much better. Vanessa, you did a great job. It's a fantastic documentary. I think it's a perfect introduction even for people who do not know about Elsa Morante, and even those who are familiar with her work, I'm sure have learned something new about her. For a private person as she was, that constantly limits her exposure to media, how difficult was it to find sources, documents, photographs? And what did you find, and what was, if any, the discovery that you found more exciting? Because I know making this documentary was exciting for you. Yes. Can we lower the lights? Thank you. Grazie, Giulia.
It wasn't easy to write and direct this documentary. The first reason was that, and that was also the reason why there were no documentaries on Elsa Morante, that we had no photographs or historical footage, not so many as are needed to build 50 minutes of television, because if you want to tell something on television, you have to show something there. We don't use reenactments. It's boring to hear always people who talk about something. And so I've been asking to write and direct this documentary for years, and for years they told me in the Italian public television, you can't do that because there are no sources to do that. But then I found out something that changed completely the destiny of this project, because you've heard Patrizia Cavalli, the poet.
She was our guest here. That was also very moving to see her. She was here for a performance concert. She was extraordinary, and it was great to.
I hope you saw her, because she was really the greatest poet that we had in Italy. And when Elsa Morante died in 1985, all her friends decided to give all her pictures to Patrizia Cavalli. So Patrizia Cavalli could write a book based on the photographs in the future. But then years passed, and Patrizia Cavalli didn't write this book, and the legend of the suitcase full of photographs was known by everybody, but nobody could see it. Patrizia Cavalli died 2 years ago, and I was already working on the documentary when she died, and I was working really hard because I had no photographs. So I was always trying to figure out how to fill all the holes that I had in the historical tale. And then when Patrizia Cavalli died, the hair, Morante hair, there was Carlo Cecchi, the actor, took the suitcase and brought the suitcase to his house outside Rome. So the dream was even, it was even harder to reach these photographs. I had no car. I asked the car to a friend of mine. She's there, Silvia. Thank you, Silvia. And she borrowed me the car, and I went to see this suitcase. And Carlo Cecchi opened his house for me. And if you can show us, okay. This is the picture of the suitcase.
Ci spostiamo, Julian? Un po'? No. Io voglio vederlo.
And this is the picture of the suitcase. And and you can see. And I started to put the photographs on the floor. And I say, okay, wow, all my problems are are solved by this.
So Vanessa, to get this right, you got your hands on the suitcase.
Yes, I did.
It was not a legend. It really existed. A suitcase.
Yeah. The photographs that was done by me in that moment. And then I found all these photographs inside the suitcase. You can see Morante has a child, has a young girl. And I saw for the first time the difference, the class, the problem of the class between her and Moravia. When I first saw those pictures of Moravia when was young, that I knew that Moravia was richer, but when I saw this picture, I completely understood what Morante meant when she thought about how she felt different, snobbish, and so I built the documentary using these pictures, and everything changed, and it was possible to show something finally. And now we can let the pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for somebody as private as she was, that deliberately she limited her presence, first television, and then the newspapers, and also in this she was exactly the opposite of Moravia.
And also of Pasolini.
Pasolini. There was another very important writer at the time that we are going to celebrate shortly, Italo Calvino, that when newspapers called him, and that was an Italian habit, anything that happened, they would call the writers to get their comments. And inevitably Calvino would say, I am a writer. I couldn't tell you anything particularly intelligent about this specific topic, but I have a good friend who is a writer who definitely will have a quote for you. And he would give them the number of Moravia, who inevitably would give them the quote that they needed for the newspaper. So exactly the opposite of the presenzialismo. Yes?
Visconti, one of Morante's best friend in this photograph, very, very strange, sorry, Luchino Visconti.
So even in this idea of withdrawing herself from the public light, what determined that? Not only to be different and the opposite of Moravia, but it was a way for her to be with herself, to devote herself to her writing without distraction? What motivated that?
She started to disappear from the newspapers and from television at the beginning of the 60s. So when television started to become something important in Italy, because in Italy we had television since 1954, but in the first years, not a lot of people had television. And so when television starts to become something, she decided not to appear there. I think that one of the reasons is that she was starting to become, as I try to explain in the documentary, always more and more radical and critical against the system of information. She was really politically very, very radical and very determined not to have nothing to do with newspapers and the news systems and television, that she felt as something full of lies and who knows why.
Even back then, now too, the presence of a writer on television, the number of minutes that a writer is exposed to television determines the sale of books.
Yes.
In Italy, the numbers are impressive. Like the day after a writer is on television for this number of minutes, you can bet that the number of copies sold the day after is going to be this
A friend
much.
of mine told me that every time he goes on TV, he sells 500 copies of his book. So, but she didn't need that.
No, she didn't. Vanessa, the other thing you found is something that the Swiss television, as you mentioned, had. And the Televisione della Svizzera Italiana is a public broadcast system of the Swiss Confederation on Italian cultural topics, mostly, and Italian language. And it's not a source that has been tapped very often.
No, because it's Switzerland, and you don't think that you can find something on Italy in Switzerland, not on the culture of post-war era. But since I write these documentaries, I've been writing a lot of documentaries in the last 20 years. I found out that this archive is really full of wonderful things, and nobody ever looked there. And so I asked them to make a research on Elsa Morante, and they found out this impressive, because what we miss now of Elsa Morante is the voice. We have only the moment where she is awarded with the Premio Strega. Do you remember? She talks about Isola di Arturo, and we can hear her voice. And there is Antonioni that look at her like this, very interested in what she's saying. And but then we have no voice. We have the photographs, but that is a really interesting archive, because we have her voice, and she talks about one of the most important things for her, that is what it means to be a writer. And so I was very one of the person I interview, Guerrera, the historian of photography, that is one of the the most important collectors in Italy of things owned by Elsa Morante, and is also the man who produced the two main expositions in Rome about Pier Paolo Pasolini, was shocked by the fact that I found something that he didn't know in Switzerland, and that was the voice of Elsa Morante. And another thing is a short footage that shows Elsa Morante and Pier Paolo Pasolini. They laugh together, they are very close. And I found this because I couldn't believe that public television archives had nothing more than what I knew on her. So I thought that, okay, she was famous, but Moravia and Pasolini were more famous. So I spent a lot of time looking all the footage on Moravia and on Pasolini, thinking that she will be there somewhere. And I say, wow, she's there.
And those few minutes are very important, because there was a very strong friendship, but it was unresolved. And unfortunately, when Pasolini was murdered, it was a moment in which they were not speaking. So we can just imagine her pain and her mourning that was all compressed inside. And this witness that was Marco Bellocchio, the director, remember her screaming every now and then during the funeral. And did you find out something new or different regarding her relationship with Pasolini? Things that you didn't know, or
things that I didn't know were a lot, but things that people normally maybe don't know, I think there are few. But I found really, really funny the memory of Goffredo Fofi when he tell about how Pasolini was happy to be invited to a dinner from Agnelli. Agnelli, I think that everybody knows who Agnelli was, but if you don't, Agnelli was the owner of the Fiat, the most important
car factory,
car factory in Italy.
And probably the richest man in Italy.
The richest man in Italy, but also the symbol of the capitalism in Italy. So the fact that Pasolini was so happy to be invited to a dinner from the Italian capitalist was really shocking for Elsa Morante, and the memory of Goffredo Fofi is really funny. I don't want to repeat what she said, but you read it.
We should start. I would have 10,000 questions for Vanessa, but I would like to open to the public. Raise your hand, and then Nablu is going to bring you a microphone. In the meantime, I want to remind you that our second Elsa Morante appointment is going to be on November 9th here at the Casa, and we're going to present the new translation of Elsa Morante, Lies and Sorcery by Jenny McPhee. So Jenny McPhee is going to be with us, along with Anne Goldstein and Franco Baldasso, to discuss this new translation of Morante's book. The questions or comments? Nobody? Yes, go ahead. Wait for the microphone 1 second. No, but we need it for the recording.
Sorry. I understand. I was reading some stuff about her, and it seemed like she published about 5 volumes of short stories.
Ha pubblicato 4 volumi di racconti brevi?
Sì, she did.
But it didn't look like anything was translated into English yet.
I don't think.
No.
I don't really know.
No,
I don't
no.
think that's
I have a
really-
cousin. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, no, short stories really show a lot. Sometimes there are authors who only wrote a few. There was a hack in Hollywood, John O'Hara, but they did like 10 of his books. But if you read his short stories, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
I don't. Maybe some of them are going to be included in the.
They're wonderful.
I'm sure that she.
No, they are.
It's easier to knock a short story off when you're running around from 3 husbands in a war.
Short stories are unbelievably beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I have a comment more than a question, because it seems to me that we ought to say today, which is 16th of October 2023, so this is the 8th anniversary of the roundup of the Roman Jews,
yes.
in the ghetto. More than 1,000 people, only 17 came back. But what made me cry when I read La Storia was the part in which the protagonist goes to the fishmonger in the ghetto, and I don't remember the name of the fishmonger, and she sees that the ghetto is deserted, just exactly that day, and then and sees the fishmonger was crying because her husband, her children, she can't find them anymore, been deported, and she follows her until the Tiburtina, also holding the boy in her arms. I mean, that is such an amazing.
If you remember, she was going to buy new shoes for.
Shoes, but yeah. Sorry, but that is, yeah. And any time now I go to the ghetto, I remember that, and that makes me cry.
Thank you for reminding that very important day.
And it's very important because when
Thank
La
you.
Storia came out in 1974, the history of the ghetto was not very. I mean, was known, but was not popular. It was something that it was not so so commonly told, and not in novels. So Elsa Morante did it for the very first time in a popular novel, and that was very important.
Yes. Nablu, here. Thank you.
Ciao, thank you so much for a beautiful documentary. I was really inspired to learn new things about Elsa Morante, which I had started to find out about. I had watched the video of Patrizia Cavalli speaking about literally meeting Elsa Morante being the event that transformed her into a poet kind of in the public scene. And just being able to know that she invested in a lot more youth, young writers at the time. Even just discovering that the first cover of Elsa Morante's La Storia had a dead baby on it, because I was gifted a copy of the version you can buy at Feltrinelli now that has a live baby on it by a lover the first summer I spent in Rome after studying Italian for a year. And knowing that about it creates a hugely difference in knowledge about her kind of rebellious nature as an artist. And I was wondering if just being able to create this project, spending more time in the archives, finding the suitcase, you were able to learn more about the ways that she touched other writers, women writers, and just writers in general in the time. And just more about her relationships with others and how she was a transformative member of the community.
Well, she always she didn't want to be called a female writer, a scrittrice. She wanted to be called a scrittore. As Patrizia Cavalli wanted to be called una poeta. But poeta in Italian is okay. It's not the same because poeta. Okay.
But with the feminine article, una poeta or la poeta.
Una poeta or la poeta is true. But Elsa Morante wanted to be. But I think, and she was not feminist. I mean, she grew up and she became an important writer in the years where and when feminism was becoming more and more important in Italy. I think that she was another kind of political writer, and all her life she tried to fight to be a writer, and so she felt that being a woman or not being a woman was not important for her. Today, we should say that was a cultural problem. I mean, she didn't have the chance to see exactly that the problem. One of her problem was being a woman, but then she became an influential writer in a really male world. And I think that she did not influence a lot of female writer in her years, but Natalia Ginsburg, that was the other important and influential writer, and she too didn't want to be called a female writer. She has always been talking about Elsa Morante as the most important one. So now today there are a lot of female writers who are writers because they read Elsa Morante. So it took maybe 30 years, but then at last she did it.
Thank you. And the blue there. Yeah. So in the meantime, while the microphone arrives to destination, so for the fans of Elsa Morante, November 9th, presentation of A License Sorcery with Jenny McPhee, who just translated it. For the fans of Vanessa Roghi, instead, she's going to be again on this stage tomorrow, and she's going to be...
Sleep here to be sure not to miss it.
We're bringing her a soup and something like that. And she's going to be on this stage with Diletta Pasetti, who you see right there, and the two of them are going to talk about the two most revolutionary priests you have never heard of, because they've not known at all in this country, Don Mazzolari and Don Milani, but they played a phenomenal role in the development of Italian society after World War II. So Vanessa is going to talk about Don Milani, Diletta is going to talk about Don Mazzolari. In the middle, we have a censored film by Ermanno Olmi, the great director, that was censored, disappeared we found it. We're going to show it to you with subtitles. So it's going to be a great evening tomorrow as well. And Vanessa is going to be with us. Next question.
Okay, my question is, you pointed to a photograph and you said that opened up everything for you. And I'm wondering, what did it open up for you? You looked at the photograph and you said that changed everything for you.
Okay. Sorry.
And then I have a second question so we can wrap it up with me.
You're hired as moderator.
My brilliant friend, Ferrante, the writer, is she influenced by this woman, and is she compared to this woman in importance in Italy? She's very important here.
Yeah, she's very important in Italy too.
Thank you.
And thank you for your questions. The photographs I showed before was one of the photographs of young Alberto Moravia, and that, of course, the photograph alone didn't change the way I saw their story, because I've read a lot about their story, and I knew that they had different origins, and she came from a middle class family,
Lower middle class. Right?
lower class family, and Moravia was high. Well, he came from a high class family, but when I read the diaries, Elsa's diaries about Morante, I felt not only the difference of the class, but also how she felt humiliated by this difference. It was not only because she felt so different from the people who surrounded him. And when I saw the pictures that now you are going to see, because this is the end of the showreel, well, I understood why she felt so different, because he was, he had this richness in his DNA. Come si dice DNA? DNA. He was born feeling at ease wherever he was, and he was a male. And in 1929, when he was very young, he published a very influential book in Italy. He was the jet set of everything. And Elsa Morante was nothing. She was a woman, she was poor, and so, but she was better than him. And she knew that. She knew that she was
a better writer.
A better writer. Yeah. She knew that, but she was a woman. How many times did we thought in our lives that we were better than, of some man that was just...
No, you're totally right. I agree.
Okay, but then we were women. Okay, and this photograph, I think, is really...
He's like the owner of the world, the master of the world.
Yes, the master of the world. So, I hope I answered to your first question. You're welcome. And the second is that, yes, of course, Elena Ferrante has been, by a lot of not only critics but also scholars have been put together with Elsa Morante. Lies and Sorceries, l'amica geniale. What is the title here in My Brilliant Friend? Okay, they have two important things in common. We don't know the time. I mean, we can understand when is not the story is come si dice, ambientata, is placed, and the city we know is Naples in Ferrante. We know it's a southern city in Morante. But this is what Natalia Ginsburg said before. This is the secret of a great novel: not to show everything, but to let you understand everything. And this they have in common. And the second thing that I think they have in common is to come si dice, to hide themselves somehow, and to let only their books talk for themselves. Okay, we don't know about Elena Ferrante, but it's not important because we love her books. I love her.
And
books.
If Elena Ferrante is who we know she is, she's also married to a writer who is very famous.
Who cares?
No, but but Vanessa, it's the parallel between the two of them. that continues in that.
Yeah, but that's why I think it's not important to know.
But I think that if Elsa Morante had known before, she would have not even appeared at the very beginning, because she was constantly under this shadow. So.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, thank you. It was a wonderful documentary. We took a course last year at Hunter on Italian women writers, so we knew a little bit about her story, but it was really put it in bigger context. So I have two quick questions. One, in two of the photos, there's a young boy with her, and I wonder who he is. Did she have children? Also,
She didn't.
who do you know? I mean, she's with a young boy, so I was just curious. And
No, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not a relative.
Okay, and then her relationship with Natalia Ginsburg. I know that she was her publisher initially, and she says in your film that it was important for her. So I was just wondering, beyond being her publisher, what their relationship was. And it's so interesting because a lot of these Italian women writers were Jewish or half Jewish. So that's an interesting thing.
It's true. And Natalia Ginsburg and Elsa Morante were friends. They have been friends for all their lives. And I found in the famous suitcase a lot of pictures of Elsa Morante in Ginsburg's house. But the funniest thing are the cats. I don't remember if in this showreel there are the cats, but both they love cats. And we know also that Elsa Morante also loved dogs. But cats was, it's like Beatles and Rolling Stones, so you have to choose. But then Elsa Morante both loved cats and dogs. Yes, ecco, these two cats, grazie Stefano, these two cats were given by Natalia Ginsburg to Elsa Morante. And I remember an interview where Elsa Morante said that she thought that Natalia Ginsburg spied her with the cats because but yes, they were friends. They were good friends, and they had this in common. The fact of being Jewish, I think, is that in Italy, women had few chances to study and to become something in their lives, and maybe, but I'm not a sociologist and I don't really have studied this item, but I think that the family where they came from has a different model of women that came also by the fact of being the heirs of another tradition, but I can't say more.
No, but probably it is true, the fact that potential-wise, Italian Jews valued education greatly as a minority that was oppressed, and for a long time they
but women were still women, even if they were Jewish. I mean,
they were Jewish women.
Yeah, they were Jewish women, but they were women, and so Natalia Ginsburg has a completely different story. As you know, she grew up in a important, I mean, not that important, but a family where everybody studied. She didn't study because she didn't want to, but she could have studied. Elsa Morante was the daughter of a teacher, and her mother wanted her to be a writer since she didn't succeed to be one. So two different stories, completely different.
Yes.
Will your documentary be shown more broadly in the U.S.? Is it going to be distributed, or no? You don't know.
But who knows? No.
We had to.
For television, or
It will be. I would love it, but for the moment, this is the first time.
And only.
And only. So you are.
No, I'm serious. We had to petition RAI to show this documentary here tonight, pay a very small fee. They could charge a little more. And we provided the subtitles ourselves, but the contract with RAI says one screening only, no circulation. Wait, not finished. You find the documentary on RAI Play that is the app that Rai Television has. I believe it's accessible also from the States,
Non lo so, penso
but
di...
not with the subtitles. So
No?
no, it's not. So you can do one of these hacking that you pretend to have your computer in Italy, ask somebody else. I have no idea how you do that, but you can. But you would have it without the subtitles. So tonight we offered it with the subtitles. Yes. The microphone, just 1 second. No, we need for the recording. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. I thought it would be interesting to hear a little bit more about your inspirations and your motivations for doing this. Like, where did it start? Did you read her in college? You know, as a journalist, it's a great story that hadn't been told. So I appreciate that you stayed the course and you had that lucky find with the suitcase. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your relationship to her as a reader, and maybe you could throw in which is your favorite novel.
Thank you. I think that one of the reasons was that I felt guilty because my last 3 books are on male writers. And I wanted, and I was beginning to wondering why I was going on writing books on men while I wanted to write something on a woman, but I didn't feel, it's not easy to deal with somebody so famous, so studied, so researched as Elsa Morante. And so I said that I could start with a film that was easier to write than a book. And but then I found out it was not easy to write a film because I had no footage. But then, so I wanted to study and to work on a woman that had an important role in the period after Second World War. And I love their books, of course. I love their books, and I thought that could be a good start for me to study something completely different. So I didn't start, it was not my dream when I was in college. So one day I will write something on Elsa Morante, but now I'm happy I did it.
Yes, right back there.
Hi, you painted a picture of a literary scene and it may just be the way the footage was put together, but it feels almost like Hollywood's celebrity world today, which I don't think the literary world, it feels like a different climate in terms of like fame in the literary world, and I wonder how much that had to do with her withdrawal, this like fame that she accessed across the country.
She was, if I understood the question, the star system for writers was really an Hollywood style.
Yes.
Yes.
It
Okay.
seemed like it from the documentary.
Yeah. It was like that, and that created a lot of public figures, and they were celebrities in the 50s and in the 60s and in the 70s. Then everything changed. But then they were really celebrities, and the photo.
It was a very close-knit group of people. It was very difficult to be admitted in the circle. So much so that she wants to be introduced to Moravia, right?
She wanted to be introduced to Moravia, yes, when she was young, because she admired him and she wanted to know him. And but I think that she would have become a writer even without knowing him, because she already wrote on newspapers when she met him, and but the celebrity was very, very important for this group of people in the 50s. I mean, it was not important for them, but it was normal to be star.
Do you think that she wanted that, or coming from the class that she wanted?
No, she wanted. She wanted to be in that star system at the beginning, because she felt at ease when.
But also because it seemed impossible to be a writer without belonging to the group.
But at the beginning she didn't have problem of being there, because I think that one of the things that we have to understand is that the shift between 40s and 50s in Italy has been a revolution. Before, we had fascism, and then we had democracy. In 1 year, everything changed. Women vote for the first time, 1946, and Elsa Morante won Viareggio Prize after Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci, who has been killed by the fascists after 10 years of prison in 1937, and he won the first edition of Il Premio Viareggio. And that showed that culture was something that was completely changing the face of Italy, that Italy was something completely different. A communist put in jail 10 years, died there, won the most important prize in literature in Italy, and the next year, a woman. She was the wife, she was Moravia's wife, but she was still Elsa Morante, a woman young. And if you remember, she won the prize with Sibilla Aleramo. Sibilla Aleramo wrote a book, very important book, that was called Una Donna. It was the first feminist book in Italian history. She wrote this book about her autobiography. It's a wonderful book. I don't know if it's translated.
Yes.
It's unbelievably beautiful, and I think it's the first book that our generation read about a woman grown up in the 20s in Italy. And so the very moment is important to understand why it was so important to be there, to be part of the star system, because the star system was not Hollywood. It was a star system that gave the most important prize to Antonio Gramsci. Mm-hmm. And that was the way to become popular, but also for everybody, democratic. And so, yes, then she changed her mind.
Yes.
I'm so happy you brought up Sibilla Aleramo because I'm working on a thesis on her right now. Her letters, 100 untranslated letters of love between her and Lina Poletti. It's a queer love that was born from when they met at the 1908 Women's Congress in Rome. But I was struck in finding out about Sibilla Aleramo that when many people are describing, actually I was watching the Rai series documentary on her, and some intellectuals describe her. And even within celebrating uplifting her, there's this comparison drawn between her and Elsa Morante, where it's like, okay, we can't really compare Sibilla and Elsa because Elsa was a great, you know. That kind of frustrated me. Like I felt the need to feel defensive for Sibilla because of understanding really the lineage, like how you were explaining, like the ways that Elena Ferrante, it was possible for her to write because of having read La Storia, and you know, obviously Una Donna would have similarly affected Elsa Morante in that way. And so I just wanted to ask you about that lineage for her, and also noting that perhaps there's a reason for it to understand where someone's quality of becoming great might come from. That ambition that her mother had to publish her writing, which she did not live out, and her daughter succeeds, and without feeling like a baggage or oppressed by this unmet desire of her mother, actually lives out the dream. And meanwhile, Sibilla Aleramo had a tortured relationship with her mother, and this is reflected in Una Donna and her life's work, because her mother was attempted suicide many times, sent to many asylums. So I just wanted to ask you also about if you discovered about her relationship with her mother.
On the relation between Elsa Morante and her mother, there are books and articles, and I only read articles written by somebody else or biographies. And there is this book written by Marcello, Elsa's brother, and it's very interesting. It's called Amata, Odiata. It's about their mother, and you can see a very intense relationship. And I don't think that Elsa Morante loved Sibilla Aleramo because she was a woman, and but not because she didn't love her as a writer, but because she thought that her career was too conditioned by the fact that she was a woman, and she wrote a book about being a woman. But I feel that also that if Elsa Morante existed was also thanks to Sibilla Leramo, who wrote Una donna. So maybe she was not her model, but she was an important, the shoulder where you can stand on and go forward.
If there are no more questions, I want to thank Vanessa Roghi for
Grazie.
having made this documentary and for being here with us to discuss it. So tomorrow evening, 6:30, Vanessa and Diletta on Don Mazzolari and Don Milani with the Unseen movie by Ermanno Olmi, and on November 9th, the presentation of Lies and Sorcery in the new translation by Jenny McPhee. Thank you all again very much.
Grazie.